Welcome to the SmartKeys podcast, where we focus on high-leverage insights to solve modern business challenges. Today, we're dissecting the one foundational tool that still cuts through all the marketing noise: brand storytelling.
And we're taking a deep dive into an in-depth guide that's really designed for professionals. This isn't about, writing a cute anecdote. It's about a serious strategic approach to operationalizing your narrative in a very, very noisy market.
It's so necessary because, the market is just saturated with feature lists and specifications. The guide makes this case that modern consumers are, well, they're fundamentally shifting. They pick companies that feel human and true, and they'll bypass the ones that only focus on the transaction.
Right, and what's crucial here is defining what brand storytelling actually is. It's using a repeatable narrative rooted in the company's core values to create an emotional bridge to the audience. It's the mechanism that elevates you beyond just the product specs and forces you to articulate why your company even exists.
And the high leverage insight there, it really boils down to human behavior. As the source material reminds us, people make decisions with feeling first, gut instinct, affinity, trust. And then, only then, do they justify that decision with logical facts later.
Precisely. If you build those positive emotional associations by genuinely addressing the customer's wants, their needs, their fears, you bypass the transactional hard sell entirely. You establish trust, which is really the foundation of any long-term loyalty. This deep dive is about understanding the professional framework that makes that emotional connection scalable and repeatable.
Okay, so if we accept that emotion is the starting point, then we need a strategic framework. We need something to put that emotion to work. The source material really emphasizes this critical and I think often misunderstood rule: the protagonist rule.
This is where so many companies fail right out of the gate. They make the brand the hero, but the rule is crystal clear. The customer must always be the protagonist, the hero in your narrative. Your brand, conversely, is just. It's relegated to the role of the trusted guide, the mentor, or the helper.
So you're not saving the day.
No, you don't achieve the transformation. You provide the map, or the tools, or the confidence for the customer to achieve that meaningful outcome for themselves.
Okay, but stories need tension, right? So where does a company that, deals in widgets or software find a compelling narrative arc? How do we uncover the conflict when all we have is sales data and spreadsheets?
Well, good stories always begin with a human tension that customers instantly recognize. Professionals need to stop generating these internal narratives and just start listening. The conflict is right there. It's in your customer support tickets. It's in your product reviews, in social media comments. That's raw, unfiltered pain.
Right.
The key is to pinpoint those real pain points and then phrase those tensions in their words, not corporate jargon.
So you're arguing that customer support data is actually the highest form of strategic insight. By mapping those pain points, we can outline that simple, transformative plot: the start, the breaking point, the obstacles, and then the resolution.
Absolutely. The value is in showing the transformation from pain point to outcome. Think about the Pete and Jerry's example from the guide. They weren't just selling eggs. They were addressing the conflict of consumer anxiety around organic assurance and food transparency. By creating 3 distinct hero profiles based on those anxieties, they sold the solution to the conflict, not just the product.
And this strategic focus on empathy and resolution, that's why Harvard Business School stresses that storytelling drives the journey from awareness to purchase by capturing attention and building empathy. But how do you scale empathy?
That's the million-dollar question. The story has to end not just with a product placement, but with a clear moral. That moral is the takeaway that reinforces your core message, your values, and motivates that final purchase decision. It proves that the transformation is possible for you, the person listening.
It seems like the theoretical framework is sound, but where does the story break down when a company actually tries to scale this strategy?
Right, if the strategy is the blueprint, the execution is the construction site. It gets messy. The guide highlights that the biggest operational challenge for growing businesses is balancing authenticity with consistency.
Okay, let's start with authenticity. The guide stresses that your company values are, well, they're useless if they're only expressed as promises. They have to show up in real people's lives through proof, which means focusing on human moments that validate those values rather than just declaring them.
And that leads directly to the critical professional risk, what the guide calls the authenticity gap. Businesses have to constantly audit their external messaging against the actual customer experience support, delivery, product quality. If your marketing promises exceptional speed, but your support team takes 3 days to respond, you create this huge chasm of distrust. The operational goal is to close those gaps fast.
Before they erode loyalty. And as a business scales, consistency becomes exponentially harder. I mean, consistent messaging, visuals, design, that all builds recognition. This isn't a creative luxury. It's a critical professional workflow challenge.
This is where we shift from these abstract ideas to high-leverage systems. How do you, as a professional, actually manage that complexity? The source material details some very practical tools that prevent the organization from wasting resources.
Okay, let's unpack those because just listing them misses the point, right? We need a system that prevents what the guide calls the 80-20 problem, where 80% of your resources are spent correcting 20% of off-brand output.
Exactly. You need organizational governance. First, a living style guide to keep the tone and voice aligned. Second, a CMS, a content management system for centralized content flow. But crucially, you need a DAM, a digital asset management system.
For those unfamiliar, the DAM is the single source of truth for all your approved visuals and media. Why is that specific system so critical for operationalizing storytelling?
Because without it, teams just default to old, off-brand, or unapproved assets. The guide stresses you have to train all teams on asset use. A central DAM cuts off those off-brand outputs that can undo months of hard work in an instant. It ensures your brand memory stays consistent.
And that consistency has to be applied across every platform. You need clear channel mapping. So every channel, from the website, which is great for long-form case studies, to social media, which demands short scenes and CTAs, it all has to carry that one unified message.
Right. Consistency in design and message just reduces friction, and reduced friction translates directly into faster purchases. So once you have that organizational consistency sorted, the next step is making sure you deploy the right narrative at the right time. We have to stop telling the same story everywhere. Matching the narrative to the customer segment and their journey stage is key to campaign effectiveness.
So we're segmenting the story types based on the goal. If a customer is deep in the funnel, say consideration or decision, you deploy what the guide calls functional stories. These highlight clear product strengths and, well, clear fixes.
A great functional example is Mavi's Perfect Fit campaign. Their audience had very specific sizing issues, so the story wasn't about fashion ideals. It was about the immediate clear fix their product provided. It's very pragmatic.
Okay, then you have the underdog or lifestyle narratives. Those are more for awareness and building affinity at the top of the funnel. I'm thinking of Nantucket Nectar's foundational story, with only a blender and a dream. That humble beginning, it just creates immediate warmth.
It's relatable. Or Mavi's counterexample, the Mediterranean lifestyle promotion. That's pure aspirational affinity, designed just to pull you in.
And finally, to deepen loyalty and advocacy with existing customers, you use social mission stories. The classic example is Dove's Real Beauty Pledge. It links inclusivity and social advocacy directly to the brand. You're not just selling soap anymore.
You're selling a stance. And in all three of these types, social proof is just essential. The guide highlights a telling statistic. Nearly half of shoppers will skip a purchase if there are no reviews. You have to use customer quotes, testimonials, case studies to highlight that before and after arc. That proof is the validation.
And that brings us to the metrics. Because these narratives aren't just feel-good content, they're powerful economic levers. Nike and Airbnb succeed not just because they tell stories, but because they focus on measuring the return on that emotional, athlete-led, or community-driven content.
And we see the direct impact. Rhino's recycled product campaign, a clear social mission story, raised sales by 17%. The commitment to purpose demonstrably converts. But look at the scale of impact. Travel Oregon didn't just run ads. They built an integrated content engine that added over $50 million to the state's economy.
That's fascinating. Tell me a bit more about that Travel Oregon example. How did they actually operationalize a content engine to link specific stories to such clear economic metrics?
They understood that their product was the state itself. So they mapped narratives to visitor intent, using compelling stories about small towns' unique experiences. By meticulously tracking engagement and measuring the lift in travel spending and local tax revenue, they proved that storytelling wasn't a marketing expense, it was an economic development strategy. That level of measured impact is what professionals should be aiming for. Okay, but professional excellence demands we talk about the practical safeguards, the pitfalls. We've talked about consistency, but let's re-emphasize that organizational and visual drift. Inconsistent visuals, off-brand messaging. It can undo months of work.
And that's where those systems, the CMS and the DAM, act as a strategic firewall, that single source of truth to prevent the drift. But strategically, what's the biggest storytelling mistake?
Never, ever make the story product-centric. Keep it people-centric, focused entirely on customer outcomes and those human moments of relief or achievement. The other pitfall, and this is especially relevant today, is resource waste. Resist chasing every single fleeting social media trend. If it doesn't align with your core story, just don't do it.
So before hitting publish, what's the simple checklist professionals should be applying? We need a rapid feedback loop.
The guide offers 3 essential checks. First, clarity. Is the message easy to read? Is it universally understood? Second, credibility. Is there proof included? A review, some data, a concrete example? And third, fit. Does this specific piece of content actually match the campaign goal and the target customer's journey stage?
And if the content passes, we move to measurement. We have to track impact across the entire funnel, not just at the final conversion. For attention, you track impressions, share of voice.
Look at how Pizza Hut used that highly specific, emotional story, the AI to real world, twist to spike 20 million impressions in 48 hours. That was purely designed to capture attention.
Then you move to engagement. Look beyond simple likes to metrics like watch time, comments, saves. Volvo Penta's video campaign drove 6.5 million impressions, but what mattered was the high rate of through plays, a clear signal the narrative was resonating deeply enough to hold that attention.
And finally, for trust and revenue, you measure conversions, brand lift, and LTV lifetime value.
Okay.
This requires meticulous tracking. You have to use UTMs, those little tracking codes in every link and content tagging, to isolate which themes, which narrative types, and which stories are actually driving a purchase. That quantitative data, paired with the qualitative feedback, tells you the whole story.
So, to synthesize this deep dive, successful brand storytelling really requires operationalizing consistency, using the right tools, the DAM, the CMS, style guides, and then diligently applying that narrative framework, conflict, hero, plot, moral, to create repeatable work that earns both trust and sales.
I think the central lesson is that a foundational story, when it's paired with strong organizational governance, turns an abstract creative idea into measurable, consistent revenue-driving work.
That leaves us with a provocative thought for you, the listener.
The next step is always practical. Test one new story, rigorously measure the results, that qualitative feedback paired with those quantitative KPIs, and just learn fast. So the question for you, the professional, is this. What specific human insight are you going to map to a clear, measurable revenue metric this quarter?
That is the perfect question to start the next strategy meeting. Thank you for tuning in to the SmartKeys podcast for this deep dive into crafting narratives that resonate and sell.
We hope these insights help you build smarter, more efficient campaigns.
If you want to explore the full professional guide we discussed today, Brand Storytelling, Crafting Narratives that Resonate and Sell, the link to the full article can be found in the show notes. And make sure you subscribe to the SmartKeys podcast for more insights on the future of work and productivity hacks. We'll be back soon with more high-leverage knowledge.